Sit back and throw one back with your pinkies in the air and a middle finger to the world. And join me, the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, as we look back on this day in professional wrestling history. But before we do, put that drink down, like, share, and subscribe, and give us a big old thumbs up. And now, without further ado, let's look back on this day in pro wrestling history. It is February 1st, and we're going to start off as we always do on a positive note. These are your pro wrestling birthdays. 1908, Herb Welch. 1935, Dory Dixon. 1942, Masa Saito. 1952, one half of one of my favorite tag teams of all time, Dennis Condrey. 1972, Sean Casey. 1973, Nick Mitchell. 1982, Marcus Mack. 1984, The Masked Man, The Masked Mamba. And 1987, Ronda Rousey. Of course, on the flip side of that coin, your pro wrestling deaths for February 1st. 2010, Jack Briscoe. Alright, enough of the sad stuff. It's time to get to the meat and potatoes. That's right, it's time for your pro wrestling history highlights for February 1st. 1963. NWA World Heavyweight Champion Lou Thesz ends Killer Kowalski's claim to the title by defeating him in Houston, Texas. Kowalski was indeed recognized as champion in Texas, but not by the NWA. Kowalski had defeated Buddy Rogers in a 3-fall match on November 21st in Montreal, Quebec. After only one fall, Rogers suffered a broken ankle. Thesz had defeated Rogers, who was still NWA champion, on January 24th in Toronto, Ontario, in a match which led to the founding of the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. The win over Kowalski gave Thesz universal recognition as NWA World Heavyweight Champion. 1972. King Curtis Iukeo and Baron Michael Scalini defeat Karl Gotch and Rene Goulet to win the WWF World Tag Team titles in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 1980. Tsunami Fujinami defeats Steve Keirn in Sapporo, Japan for the NWA International Junior Heavyweight title. Also in 1980, Ted DiBiase wins the Mid-South North American Heavyweight title for the second time, defeating Mike George in Shreveport, Louisiana. And boy, was 1980 a wild one. Jack and Ray Evans defeat Mondo Guerrero and Al Madril to win the NWA America's Tag Team titles. 1981, Leroy Brown and Ernie Ladd defeat the Junkyard Dog and Killer Carl Cox for the Mid-South Tag Team titles. Also in 1981, El Supremo defeats Franco Colombo to win the Mexican National Welterweight title in Guadalajara, Mexico. 1991, the WWF airs its 5th and final edition of The Main Event on NBC, earning a 6.7 rating for the show. Hulk Hogan and Tugboat defeat Dino Bravo and Earthquake with Jimmy Hart in the main event. Hogan pins Bravo. Later in that show, it was announced that Hogan was the #1 contender for the WWF title and that he would get that title match at WrestleMania 7 against WWF champion Sergeant Slaughter. 1993, the Moondogs, Splat and Spot defeat the Harris Brothers, Ron and Don, in Memphis, Tennessee for the USWA Tag Team titles. 1996, Peter Collins and Marty Jones defeat the Liverpool Lads, Robbie Brookside and Doc Dean, to win the vacant British Tag Team titles in Bristol, England. 1997, in an impassioned speech by Paul Heyman, he announces ECW's first ever pay-per-view to be held on April 13th, called Barely Legal, being headlined by Sabu and Taz. Those are your pro wrestling history highlights for February 1st. I'm the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, and we'll see you tomorrow.